Welcome back to Afternoon Live. Anxiety affects us all, but for some, it can truly be life-altering. Joining us with tricks to refocus our brain, we welcome back the author of Insight into a Bright Mind, neuroscientist Dr. Nicole Tetreault. Great to see you, Dr. Tetreault.
Wonderful to see you.
So happy fall. Anxiety, is it our body's response to a stress? Is that kind of the beginning of the story here?
Yeah, so there's different types of stressors, right? We have internal stressors, which are our thoughts and our emotions, and then we have external stressors, like maybe a deadline or a job interview. And anxiety can really happen at any moment. And so it's kind of really important for us to understand what the kind of causes and triggers of anxiety can be for each of us.
Yeah, so identifying the cause is one of the first steps to move forward, and noticing the changes in your own mind and your own body. What are things to look for?
Well, all of a sudden, your mind kind of may go blank. You may have greater sweaty palms. Your heart may be racing. Thoughts kind of just come out of your mind, and you could even have more rapid breathing.
And a lot of us have heard about fight or flight, but there are also freeze or faint, and kind of knowing what category that you typically fall in.
Yeah, this is really important when you're identifying stress and the triggers that are causing it. So, as we know, stress is an experience. It's not permanent. It doesn't last forever. But when these stressors come in, each of us has a default mode that we fall into. For example, for fight and flight, those are like the very first responses people have. So you'll kind of go in and you're barrel into the situation with a lot of energy. Flighting, you're going to kind of run away and flee and leave the situation. The freezers tend to just kind of almost stop dead in their tracks. And then the fainters really some people can almost have a physiological response where they kind of faint and they even flop and lack motivation. And so those modes really have different ways that an individual responds to stress.
So once you kind of recognize and identify the stressor and your own response to it, what are some strategies to move forward and kind of put that stuff to the side?
Yeah, so for me, like for example, really quickly, I categorize myself as a fleer. When I've been in contact with wild bears or hammerhead sharks, I flee. And so one thing was really important was for me to notice that. And then the second thing was to really identify this is an experience I'm having. So that's kind of like, very poignant types of stress response. Now, for example, if, driving in traffic is causing me stress, that's really important to figure out ways that we can kind of nurture ourselves. And a couple of things that we can do really simply is there's a technique called breathing. We know that 3 deep breaths, for example, resets our nervous system. It gives us positive neurochemicals of trust, and it actually puts us into that rest and digest rather than that cortisol, high adrenaline experience.
And some other sources of our anxiety and stress do come internally, right? So are there ways to kind of change the story that we're telling ourselves in our own head?
Yeah, so exactly. Our stressors really kind of come from our thoughts. And so there's this technique called neuro-linguistic programming. It's really fancy for just saying, rewiring the kind of stories we're telling ourselves. So, if we say, I'm stressed that I am driving in traffic, we could say, I get to drive in traffic and listen to my favorite song. And so it's really, how do you come across in communicating your thoughts to yourselves to change your internal state?
What about the power of hands and using touch to release stress?
So science has shown really important techniques called emotional freedom techniques, where you could do simple tapping right around your eyes, your chin, your cheeks, and you could do this sort of tapping along your hands. And also we know that just touching on top of your heart or on your belly are ways that you can, for 30 to 90 seconds, reset your nervous system, where you're kind of getting that pent up energy moved out and moved through your body.
And getting outside can help sometimes too, even just for a few minutes.
For a few minutes, if you get a chance to just be in nature, listening to sounds of nature, being in greenery, are very restorative for the nervous system and allow you to kind of reset.
And then talking through it is always a good strategy if you have somebody helpful that you can chat with.
Yeah, if you have a good friend, a good colleague, someone that you can confide in and say, hey, these kind of stressors are coming up in my life. Do you have any ideas to kind of help me work through this? But most importantly, people don't want advice. They just want to be heard.
Hmm.
And once you're heard and you voice it, it actually is the release you need.
Yeah, simple as that. Thank you so much, Dr. Tetreault. Great advice.
Thank you. Have a beautiful week.
You too. We'll have more information on our website at ka2u.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.